Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the McGonagall Boxing Podcast. Let's get straight down to it, shall we? So obviously Team Canelo's come out and said the trilogy fight with Triple G is not going to happen. If it does, I do him serious damage. I'm too big for him now. I'm in my prime. He's past it. I hate to agree with Canelo, but I think he's right on this one. Canelo, 30, is slap hanging in his prime. He seems to be getting bigger. He's clearly filled out. He's now the bigger, physically stronger man. Golovkin's strong, but he's 38. He's slowly on the slide, isn't he? To say Canelo, like he won the last two fights, obviously the first one was given a draw, but he didn't win that fight at all. I had it 8-4 to Golovkin, and I'm no Golovkin fanboy. I just scored it like many did. I think Golovkin dominated and dictated large parts of that fight, controlled it, and put a younger, admittedly, Canelo under all sorts of pressure. Does rematch? No question Canelo did better. He's more experienced that weight. Knew what to expect. I had him up early through 6, and I think Golovkin came back strong. I actually scored that, ironically, slap, bang, a draw. So, for me, Canelo hasn't beaten Golovkin, but sadly I think he would do now. And sadly, although Golovkin has got an iron chin, something he's always been proud of, he's getting hit more and more, isn't he? He got hit by, let's be honest, a B-level fighter in Steve Rolls. Davydenko, top quality amateur, great fighter, absolute barnstormer, which I think Golovkin just squeezed through. 5 years ago, he'd have probably knocked Davydenko out. He got hit a lot, and obviously he's fought a glorified journeyman in his last defence. But so he's won 3 on the bounce since, but ultimately they're fighters that aren't Canelo level. Canelo's getting sharper. He's getting a really, really vicious streak to him now. He seems to be punching harder, more aggressive, more accurately, and I think he would knock Golovkin out. Sadly, I'm a huge Triple G fan without being a fanboy. I'm realistic to know his flaws at the moment, and I think it would be late on. I just think the punches that do you most damage are the ones you don't see, and Golovkin seems to be hit more and more. He's never had the Mayweather type defence, has he? He's always a come forward aggressive fighter, sort of low crouching, but he takes one to land free, but his footwork seems to be slowing. His head movement is obviously stifled, and he's getting hit more often. He's still got the power, don't get me wrong. He can still do some damage if he catches up with you. I'm not sure he catches up with Canelo though. And obviously power's the last thing that goes, but what does go is your timing, your reflexes, and your punch resistance. And sadly, I don't want to see that fight either. And I think Canelo's spot on the money. I think he could stop him around the 8, 9, 10 mark, slowly beat him up, and it'd be a sad sight to see. Because Triple G in his prime 5-6 years ago was a phenomenal fighter, one of the great middleweights of all time, and hands down, I believe, at middleweight beats Canelo. I really believe Triple G was that good. He's up there with Hopkins for me, nearly as good as Hagler for me. I think Hagler's the best of all time on the middleweights, but that's how highly I rate Golovkin, but not now. What I'd like to see him though, I still think he's competitive. I still think he's world level Golovkin. He's just not elite level, and you have to be elite to beat Canelo. I still believe he beats Murata. Obviously that WBA title's gone vacant now in the middleweight division with Canelo vacating it. I like him to fight even Eubank Jr. for the title. That would be fantastic. I think he beats both them fighters, Triple G, even though he's on the slide. Don't get me wrong, they're going to be a hard fight to him now, but I think he's still got enough. I don't want him to see fight Charlo. I think Charlo, again, a bit like Canelo's all wrong for him. He's in his prime. He's a very, very, very good fighter. I believe Charlo's elite. I think he's too quick, and again, too slick, and punches too hard now. I think he'd beat up Golovkin now. I don't think he'd stop him, but I think he'd beat him up. But any other middleweight, Mugabay, they're saying about it, that'll be an absolute war. But again, Mugabay's kind of unproven at the the higher world level, so you kind of have to lean towards Golovkin, although that's a 50-50 now. Wouldn't be 3 years ago, but I certainly favour Golovkin to win that WBA title and end as a unified champion. That would be great to see, because he deserves that. He deserves to end on a high claim, but I don't want to see Golovkin and carry on for too much longer. That fighting style, look at it, aggressive, it doesn't last long. Fraser, Tyson, all these Hatton, all these come forward aggressive fighters, besides Pacquiao, who's like a phenomenon, and his speed just alone gets him through it. But it's a short shelf life. It's not a Mayweather defence, is it? Where you could almost do that style, take less damage. You could carry on probably till he's 50, Mayweather, and still fight at a high world level. But the come forward aggressive fighters, take one to land two, they don't last long. It's not a long-term fighting style. So I'd like to see Golovkin have one more big fight, unify the title, and then retire on as world champion and as one of the great middleweights of all time. As for Canelo, obviously he's after that unification now with Billy Joe, Calaplant. I think at this stage he beats both of them. I think Billy Joe obviously gives him all kinds of problems early doors, but I just think inactivity, I don't think Billy Joe's quite the fighter he was. I hope I'm wrong. Obviously we're all cheering for Billy Joe, but I think Golovkin, with his activity, with the fact he's getting better, I just think he eventually lands and hurts Billy Joe. And I think he beats up Calaplant as well. So I do think he'll unify the super middleweight title and become an undisputed champion at that weight. So for once I agree with Canelo. Let it lie, let it go. Golovkin in his prime for me beats Canelo right now, but then days have sadly gone. And let's get that WBO title, Golovkin, and retire on a high. And Canelo, watch out, he's after the unification, the undisputed, and I think he gets it against Billy Joe and then Calaplant. Alright guys, 2021 is shaping up to be a busy year. I'll see you soon. I'm out now. Bye.